Hello, this is a quick revision video on the B4 content respiration. Let's start by defining respiration. Respiration is a chemical reaction. It's an exothermic chemical reaction that happens in cells. Respiration is not breathing. If you get a question on an exam saying define respiration, do not say breathing. Exothermic means it's releasing energy. So the whole point of respiration is to release energy from substrates like glucose. And that energy is going to be used by a whole bunch of different things by the cell or the organism as a whole. So that energy can be used for movement. It can be used for building larger molecules. It can be used for active transport. And it can be used to keep warm. There are two main types of respiration that we need to know about for GCSE. The first is aerobic respiration. And when we see or hear the word aerobic respiration, we want to focus in that this means that it requires oxygen. Aerobic respiration occurs in the mitochondria. And the word equation for aerobic respiration is the opposite of the word equation for photosynthesis. So we have glucose plus oxygen makes carbon dioxide and water. We need to know the symbol equation and to balance that symbol equation, so let's have a go at that. Glucose is C6H12O6, oxygen is O2, carbon dioxide is CO2, and water is H2O. To balance symbol equations, what I like to do is draw a line down from the reaction arrow and then count the number of atoms of each element on both sides of that line. So we have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Start by counting the carbons in our reactants on the left-hand side. We have 6 here. For our hydrogens, we have 12. For our oxygens, we have 6, and 2 is 8. And then on the products, so on the right-hand side of the arrow, for carbon, we just have the 1. There's no number here, so that's a 1. For oxygen, we have a 2, and then again, no number, so 2 and 1 is 3. And for hydrogen, we have 2. Whenever we are balancing symbol equations, we need to remember a couple of rules. The first rule is you are not allowed to change any of the little numbers down here. You're not allowed to add any new letters. If you did that, you would be changing the chemical. So for example, O2 is oxygen. If I change that 2 to a 3, it would be ozone, and it wouldn't be the reaction that we're trying to examine here. So you're not allowed to add any letters. You're not allowed to change the little numbers. What you are allowed to do is put a big number in front. So I could put a big number here. I could put a big number here. What that means is you have that many molecules. So if I put a 3 here, that would mean I have 3 molecules of O2, of oxygen. Let's start with carbon. We have 6 in the reactants. We have 1 in the products. So I need a number that if I multiply by 1 will give me 6, and that number is 6, so I can put a 6 there. I'm now going to recount. I have 6 multiplied by 1. Remember, if there's no number, it's a 1, gives me 6. I also now need to recount my oxygens as well. I have 6 times 2 is 12, plus 1 is 13. And I haven't changed my hydrogens. But my carbons, I have 6 and 6, so I'm happy there. Let's do the hydrogens next. I have 12 in the reactants. I have 2 in the products. Again, I need to multiply a number by 2 to get 12, and the answer to that is 6. So I would put a 6 here. 6 times 2 is 12. I have 12 on this side. I have 12 on this side. Happy days. I also need to remember to recount my oxygens. So I had 6 here times 2 is 12. 6 times 1 is 6. 12 plus 6 is 18. So on the left-hand side, on the reactants, I have 8. On the right-hand side, I have 18. We're going to leave this alone completely because if we start changing that number, it's going to mess up all of our carbons and our hydrogens. We're only going to focus on this. So I need to get to 18. I have 6 here already, so I need 12. I have a 2 there, so I need to multiply 2 by a number to get 12. And again, that number is 6. I can check through. 6 plus 6 times 2 is 18. We already had 18 on the other side. Happy days, our equation is balanced. Let's take a look now at anaerobic respiration. The N is a no, so for anaerobic respiration, there is no oxygen. And this reaction happens in the cytoplasm. Good news is you don't need to remember symbol or balanced symbol equations for anaerobic respiration. The bad news is it is different in animals than it is in plants and yeast. We will start with plants and yeast. The good news for anaerobic respiration is you don't need to remember a symbol equation or be able to balance it. The bad news is that anaerobic respiration is different in plants and yeast than it is in animals. Let's start by looking at plants and yeast. In plants and yeast, glucose is turned into ethanol and carbon dioxide. Anaerobic respiration in yeast is very important, and that is called fermentation. So when we talk about fermenting or fermentation, it's anaerobic respiration, usually by yeast. And the reason that it's so important is that it gives humans 2 products that they consume a lot of. With the anaerobic respiration of glucose by yeast, you get ethanol, which is used to make alcohol, and you get carbon dioxide, which is used to make bread rise. So if you were making alcohol, you could use yeast to do that. And if you're making bread rise, or if you're making bread, in the dough before you bake it, you would put activated yeast, so yeast that's alive. And when it's in the dough, the reason that it rises up is that the yeast is releasing carbon dioxide, and those bubbles of carbon dioxide make the bread nice and fluffy. In animals, glucose is converted to lactic acid. And really what this is the incomplete oxidation of glucose. That lactic acid builds up in the muscles and leads to muscle fatigue. In the next video, which is on response to exercise and metabolism, we're going to be talking about how the body deals with that lactic acid. I hope that this has been helpful. Bye-bye.